Opening statements in the so-called cult mom murder case are happening in an Idaho courtroom today. Prosecutors say Lori Vallow Daybell killed her 7-year-old son and 16-year-old daughter in 2019 and then hatched a plan with her husband to kill his ex-wife. Now, more than 3 years later, the prosecution and defense teams are ready to start laying out their cases. At the center of this murder trial, Vallow Daybell's religious beliefs. We're going to bring in legal analyst and University of Louisville law professor, Columbia University lecturer, Dr. Laura McNeal. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
So what can we expect out of today's opening statements? And I'm focused really more on the defense here because the prosecution seems to have an easier case, although I don't know if you agree with that.
Absolutely. I agree with you. They do have an easier case, the prosecution. I think what we can expect today is two very different versions of Lori Vallow. We can expect the prosecution to paint her as a cult leader, meaning a co-conspirator in the crime of murdering both of her children. But you're going to see the defense paint a very different Lori Vallow. They're going to paint her as a loving, doting mother, as someone with a mother's heart, to the point that she adopted little 7-year-old JJ. He's not her biological child, and that she would never be capable of the horrendous murder that these children endured. And so we're going to see two different versions of Lori Vallow in the opening statements this morning. And the question is, which version the jury is actually going to believe?
Now, this is a very complicated case because there were some things that happened before this couple moved to Idaho, before the children disappeared. They involve Lori Vallow's brother. And I just want to know what the scope of this case is going to be. How much of past behavior and past sort of incidences are going to be allowed into this case, which is about the disappearance and death of the children in Idaho?
Yeah, so what the prosecution is going to do is they're going to try to convince the judge to let all that information in, the suspicious death of her first husband, who was shot dead by her brother in their home, as well as the suspicion around her Chad Daybell's wife as well, who allegedly died in her sleep. And the reason they're going to try to get the judge to allow these other things into the trial is because they're trying to establish a pattern and practice that Lori has been in a pattern of practice, to be quite honest, of being a murderer, of harming people, of doing irrational things, of being involved in not just the death of her children, but a string of deaths. And so, again, the judge is going to ultimately decide if that information is permitted. I personally think he will allow that information. It shows, again, a pattern and practice of this type of behavior.
And at the center of this are some of the religious beliefs. Lori and her husband, Chad, they believed that people could sort of be possessed and overtaken by evil spirits, that they became zombies. I wonder if that is just so far out there that it might actually help the defense, that you could say she didn't actually believe these things and ergo she didn't do the crime. What is going to be the battle like over religious beliefs in this?
It's so interesting how religious beliefs will be front and center in this particular trial. But I think what the defense is going to do is they're going to try to establish that, again, her beliefs were not to the point where she's committing murders. And so I think what they'll have to show is they're going to look at the communication. So prosecution is going to be looking at text messages, emails. Unfortunately for Lori Vallow, she's on record saying that she considered herself to be a supernatural being, that it was her calling to root out all the evil spirits in the world. And I think it might help her, to be quite honest. I'm really surprised that they found her competent and fit to even serve in the trial, and that they haven't tried to do an insanity plea, to be quite honest.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, is when you look at this, and she was at one point ruled incompetent to stand trial, and that's one of the reasons why this has taken so long. But can you still, even if someone has been ruled competent to stand trial, can you still use an insanity defense?
You know what? I think that what we will see is it depends. And why I say it depends is it's possible, but I think the key moment, or the biggest moment in the trial, is if, and it's assuming that she is, but allegedly Lori Vallow plans on testifying. If she starts saying those types of things on the jury, to the jury as she's testifying, you could see a shift in them making a motion to find her, again, incompetent, an insanity plea. So there's going to be lots of moving parts in this trial. Again, I personally, based on everything I've read in this case file, I don't think she's competent to to be tried. I think that she should have pled not guilty by reason of insanity. I have no idea why her defense attorney...
Well, Dr. McNeal, are you saying that possibly they could put her on in order to convince the jury not that she is innocent, but that she is not competent and cannot be held responsible?
I'm saying that, yes, the defense could put her on there knowing that she's not She's not well. She's not competent to serve. Anything could happen.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.